Welcome back. My name is Wayne Marentette. You're on Soul to Soul, where every heart-to-heart conversation can be perceived as a soul-to-soul revelation. That means if you give me a call, come to our Q&A, or we talk, you're going to find out that every time we talk, I'll end up giving you a soul revelation. Guaranteed. Anyway, welcome back to number 7. Last time we talked, it was a review of the first two, sentiency and the science of impression. The one I'm going to give you now, this is number 7, is going to be probably the most important for a while. It's going to take a lot, but I want you to really pay attention to this. This is the most important information I can give you. All right? Now I'm going to do a quick reminder of one thing here. I talked about photons at the origin of our universe. When the egg and the sperm come together and the information is, the chromosomes come together, separate, and start reproducing. The photons that are impacted in our life, we have photons in every cell in our body, multiple, hundreds of thousands, trillions in fact, of photons. But did you know that in the life of a photon is expected to keep its integrity at all costs? That's why we can't break through into certain areas by smashing particles together to find out things. You can't go through dimensions that easy without changing frequency, and they haven't learned how to do that, at least not to public knowledge. I know they have in other areas. But what I'm trying to say is a photon, much like a human being, an original content of our universe, is a light-efficient, self-sustaining, self-regulating, self-contained, all-informative entity. Believe it or not. A photon has 120 variations on its own integrity. It can manage integrity through 148 various spins and associations, which gives us various forms of matter, various forms of information. But, like a human being who maintains her integrity, the photons in our body are informative. Every photon in your body knows its history, its genetic history of the universe. And it knows what's going on now and what will occur by the end. In other words, the purpose, process, and plan for all of life is contained within the supergenetic resonant core of each and every photon that is in itself connected to the quantum field. We are identical to that. You think of photons at heart, we think of neurons and neurites. Neurons in the brain, neurites in the heart. They give us the sense of clarity, the sense of certainty, the assuredness that we need at times when we make an emotional conclusion or a feeling conclusion to know that we're certain. The information I'm going to give you now is even bigger. In fact, it took me over 30 years to come to this conclusion, and after a series of words. I wondered why it took so long, but it wasn't an easy answer. I asked the question, how can we overcome our not self, our ego, easier in life? There has to be a methodology that I could teach that would show people how to do this. And I begged the universe to show me, bit by bit, inspiration by inspiration, and put it all together and gave it to me. I asked other people not to teach this for the last 15 years because I was waiting for the time when it would be necessary or that people would be ready to hear this information. And I also knew that learning this information, it could be used for good or for negative. Now I have to trust you with the information, and because of the era that we live in, the actual time of our evolution being so close to inevitable, meaning we're in a process that is about to culminate into an initiation, a planetary initiation. All of us step up to the next level of consciousness, whether we've studied or not. For those who have been studying, articulating, benefiting themselves by matching the rhythms of their original host soul, all the way through the process, took me over 30 years. You won't have to do that today. It can only less than a year. You can do all of this. But this is the information I got, and I'm going to share it with you now. I want you to imagine an infant, 3-month-old baby. You've heard me say this before. Don't disturb the child. Keep them in balance. Maintain harmony. Throw all the love you've got, all sincere love, affection, compassion, benevolence, everything you've got in a positive way. Share that with your child silently. Do not allow negatives to creep in, any tendencies whatsoever other than the positive ones. Because your child will develop naturally, smoothly, and better if you do not interfere with negatives. Let me show you why. By the time the child reaches 3 years old, from 2 months to 3 years old, he's going to go through an instinctive process. What I mean by that is that the animal part of our brain, the reptoid brain, if you will, the mammalian brain, which were the first precursors to the human brain in our evolution, tend to be the first ones that have become a part of our instinctive, defensive, fight or flight, protective nature. And if they're not aroused too early, then the child just develops sentiently properly. So, where there is the infusion of love, a child will develop normally and casually and better. Where there is an incident or a breach of trust, a bond, say the mother has a bond with her child and she breaches it, it could be detrimental to the child. Let me show you why. We were pre programmed, human nature, in our body. The reason we're up against this dual side, the dark side versus the light side, is because it was given to us in our genetic patterns that we would be like our former selves first and eventually upgrade. By the time we were 5 to 7, we'd be our new fresh selves. This didn't happen quite that way in our world because of the influences and determined investment that they put, and I'll say they for now, in exchanging or changing our DNA. This is how we've ended up. By the time we're 3 years old, the budding personality, the very personality that we develop, starts to grow. Now, I want to step aside and say one more thing. Our personality is what we're here to salvage. The soul, the spirit, and all else is completely safe. You won't lose your soul in this life, even if you're evil. The soul will leave you. You get what I'm saying? The soul is not what we're saving, it's the personality. Eventually, the persona gets to the point of development where in one life, over a series of short lives, we eventuate the condition where we are now ready to manifest all of the attributes of our true nature and complete the task, at which time our soul integrates our personality. And then after that, it integrates completely with the spirit. And we have what's called the resurrection, and followed by the ascension. Both are processes. If you think of it now, those who are starting on the path, they're in the resurrection process. So let me go back to when we were children and we're developing our personalities. If at the same time in those first 3 years a breach of trust occurs between the parent and the child, the siblings and the child, or the environment in the child, then the child will become nervous, uncertain, flounder, and will want to have insights, won't know how to explain itself, and eventually they start picking up on our bad habits. Meaning, if you come into the room and you're not very loving today, and your child, say 1 year old, is waiting in the crib for you to pick them up, and you say, no, no, stay there for a while, I'm busy, and you walk out, the child wonders what's going on, he starts crying, you come back in the room, if you don't soothe them, and you're still in a negative mood because you're fighting with someone in the living room, if you carry that fight out loud while you're holding your child, the negativity that the child will experience will be yours and anyone else that you're arguing with in that environment. That will be a breach of trust. The child will get nervous, uncertain. What's this? The noises, the energy. I don't understand it. You've seen children do that. Surprised by siblings coming up and going, sticking their fingers in their face and pinching them and saying nasty things, making faces. It's not healthy for a child at that age to go through that. But it happens. But that's what they knew would happen. The minute you stop being loving, even for a minute, your child starts to notice the differences. If those impacts or that bond is broken through a breach of trust, and the child can no longer trust that the parent's genuine concern is for them, then things change. The ego, personality takes a different strain of growth, becomes instinctive, meaning instead of developing naturally, the instinctive development triggers and the child is held in that instinctual stage for a while. And this is why. When a breach of trust occurs, ego, a defensive, protective persona, begins. You know yourself when you were younger. You felt saddened. You went to your room. You cried. You made new decisions. You came out feeling less loving, less trusting, but you wanted to go out and play and ignore it. Every one of those times that we leave business unsettled because we don't know it as a child, we're allowing for conditioning to continue. I'll show you what I mean. If you have a tendency towards being critical, complaintive, or punishing, three words: critical, complaintive, and punishing tendencies. Any of these three tendencies can cause a child to develop the ego in the protective defensive mode. Instead of the personality developing and finding out what this is about later, it happens that they now get conditioned. Because CCP is the one thing holding every serious spiritual practitioner back from attainment. If you can't integrate, you wonder why. If you've been studying for years or practicing meditation for years and you still can't integrate with your soul, you don't know why. It's because you've misunderstood something along the way. You might have been told that love is all, and all you have to do is just trust and believe, and everything else will be okay. It's incorrect. It doesn't matter what you think you trust one day to the next, it's what you trust completely. The truth of the matter is that critical, complaintive, and punishing tendencies are a syndrome, a personality syndrome. It splits the personality development in two. We start developing along protective and defensive lines, as well as others, even more positive ones. But the negatives remain part of the conditioning, meaning that if your child, for example, notices that you're critical, you're condemning them, you're criticizing them, you're humiliating them, embarrassing them, putting them down, calling them names, this kind of thing. That kind of criticism affects the child in a negative way. They're going to want to protect more and more from this kind of humiliation and embarrassment. They're going to want to defend against it. They're going to tell you it's wrong. Please don't do it. They're going to sense you're loveless, whether you like it or not. If you ignore them and continue, then it gets worse. If you're complaintive, always talking about other people, complaining about the way they look, the way they smell, kind of a critical complaintiveness, or if you're just fed up with everything and you think everybody's the fault but you, everyone's to blame but you, what do you think your child learns? If you're punishing and you believe the punishment has value, you're stuck in a delusion. There's no benefit to punishment. There's no benefit to criticism unless you're looking at it objectively. There's no benefit to CCP, none whatsoever. It will only make things worse for you and others. I'll give you an example of an adult who has CCP. President Trump. We've all seen him on TV. To me, he's like a mirror. He's holding up a huge mirror saying, I got what you got what I've got. We like to criticize, complain, and punish people, don't we? We like to put them down, put them in their place, make them feel like less, shit on them, dump on them. And then we'll save the world, because that's what he is. That is CCP. That is the definition of a conditioning that was based on a breach of trust in their youth. Usually the child is heartbroken. Sometimes they even get mentally broken in a more disturbing family where the criticism, the punishment, and the complaints are beyond norm. They're very negative, and the child gets worse and worse. They become more protective, more defensive, more silent. We keep things to ourselves. We don't want to admit out loud. But by the time we're 20, what are we doing? We'll go into a social arena and we think, oh, there's a moron, there's a jerk, there's an idiot, there's a dummy. Oh, there's someone that seems nice, I'll go to them. Our habit of categorizing people through critical, complaintive, and punishing lens comes from our parents. Did you not get frustrated with your parents' frustration with you? Did you not get disappointed at the times they were disappointed in you? Did you not complain about their complaintiveness? Did you not want to be as critical as they were for criticizing you? And did you not want to punish others the way you were punished? It's a habit that can be built and developed without us even knowing it. And this undermines the soul more than anything. This genetic program I call the accuser. Accusation is its own illusion. You truly cannot accuse anybody of doing something incorrectly unless you're pious and you believe it. Unless you have pride, which is the accuser's design name. If you have pride, make it for what's positive. Be proud of that. But don't have pride in having CCP. So critical, complainant, punishing tendencies. There's a lot of them. Glamour is a tendency. Self-emulation. All these tendencies and temptations to interfere, to manipulate, to control, to do harm, to manage people, to make them pay for what they do, to only say nice things when you have to. But the critical view of reality becomes their mindset, their heart set. And at times when they're at peace, when they can have peace, they wonder how and why people don't like them, what people disapprove of. If you have a broken relationship, I can almost guarantee you it's because you notice that person lacked conscience, morals, ethics, or principle, meaning they were accusational, arrogant, ignorant. They were critical of people, including you, less of themselves, complained about everyone and passing blame to everyone except them, and punishing. The threat, just the thought that they could punish you, they could leave you, they could make you pay, they might go out of their way. These are the things that drove you crazy and said, I've had enough of that person, and you left. Because your soul knows it's not good for you to stay with someone who has this syndrome. Yet 90% of the population has it. The ones that keep it and appear to outgrow it are our politicians, psychopaths, sociopaths. It's true that you can lose your conscience by being so negative, and yet, if it doesn't bother you, you can lie and deceive and pretend that everything's going to be fine because you're the world leader. And yet, you know it's all a sham. You're just doing what you're being told by your handlers, and you're getting paid very well for it. That's how they keep us in the dark. But what you're learning here right now, what you've just heard from me, if you took 1,000 masters from history and showed them this and said, would you recommend be something that people would focus on in order to dissolve the ego? They'd say, yes. Who came up with it? It's a syndrome, personality syndrome. In order for our personality to be integrated by our soul, it must return to the positive rhythms. It must return to the positive attributes, its true nature. Because the soul will not take anything that does not belong to it when it leaves. Meaning, the misinterpretation, the misunderstanding, the deceptions, the lies, the critical nature, the complaintive nature, the accusation, all of this dark side is unwanted by your soul. And when you've heard me say this one before, not but the truth prevails. When I got that, I realized something. We don't leave with anything but the things we fully realize that were truthful. Otherwise, you're not going to remember much. Getting rid of our CCP allows us to reintegrate and remember everything about our life, our expression, our loves in life. Everything goes with us. All we have to do is get rid of the ACCP, the accuser of pride, vanity, jealousy, that comes up in the form of critical, complainant, and passion and punishing tendencies. I want you to think about it a moment. If you took one word like criticism and said, I'm going to stop being critical for 1 week, you can do it. Yeah, you can. And you'd be a different person at the end of that week. You'd want to keep doing it until you no longer had to do it anymore because you're no longer critical. And this is the best meditation I can offer you. Meditate on these words. Get rid of criticism, then complaint, and then your punishing tendencies, the beliefs that go with them. People deserve to be punished. People deserve to be yelled at. People deserve to be humiliated. No, they don't. Nobody deserves that. No one should have to be subject to it, but that's what we get in this world, the loveless side of life and the loving side of life. Too often it's mixed. Some loving, mostly critical. It's more loving, less critical, but it's still there. The fight's not over until the accuser is gone. Either you have absorbed it by recognizing that it was your own illusion, that you don't have a second personality, that these tendencies were merely a part of your nature that you were given in your DNA. They can be overcome by trading them off for the positive ones. You understand? Get rid of ACCP. Ask me questions about it when the time comes up. In a few weeks, I'll be open to that. But for now, I want you to think about this. Every critical, complaintive, and punishing thing you do is preventing you from integrating your soul into your soul. Every habit that is critical, complaintive, or punishing and accusational that you keep will continue to prevent you. Every time you get rid of one of those words, you'll have to get rid of them all. They all go together. But try to get rid of one and you'll see what I mean. You'll end up with thousands of new insights, thousands of new ways to see yourself clearly as just being an attribute, being of attribute itself. I'm a light being, a divine light being. My attribute expressions are I love, I care, I have concern, I have inspiration that can help me, and insights that can help me to overcome all the things I need to in order to remain in the positive side of my soul. And that is my true persona. The negatives were part of my animal nature, given to me at birth, that I didn't really need. And some people drove it home to me, made me learn it early, and I suffered it most of my life until I got rid of it. That is the common denominator. Now, there have been a few, as I said, masters in the past who overcame everything because they went through every word, actualized every word, and onto purity and focused on purity until they became their light body. What else did they do? They loved life. They found the source. They recognized their source. They had reverence for their source, and they became like it rather than continuing to keep on and hang on to their personality qualities that were interfering. Now, some of them did it, and they did it completely without understanding what the root of the ego was. They just did it by pure volition. They just wanted to achieve purity and holiness, and they did, at great expense. If they had known about CCP from the beginning, it would have saved them 30 years. Trust me, it's one of the worst things you can have in your life. These tendencies. Take them out, you're a completely different person. This is where accountability comes in. Our memory and our ability to process information, our intentions and our motives are all registered. When we process information, if we aren't aware of our motives, eventually these questions will come up. What about this? What about that? What about the unfinished business? What about that? You can keep questioning yourself forever and wondering what the root of it is, but think pride, and you'll find the bottom of the barrel. That's where your ego picks up the personality over time. It picks up the bad habits from the parents, picks up the bad habits from society, becomes critically complaintive, punishing, and they make a great news reporter. Over here in California today, when you know it, they sent some lasers down and burned a whole area where we grow grapes. Now, I think the government's behind it, but I can't prove it, but I'll bet you they are. You know, persuasion to be critical, persuasion to get out on the street and create a new administration, get rid of the old one. They're no good. We're the good guys. These are opinions and attitudes of the syndrome. Critical, complaining, punishing tendencies are everywhere in the news. It's what we call news. Somebody killed somebody last night. Oh, they must have been pretty upset. Must have been accusational, critical, complaintive, and decided to punish him with a gun. That tendency, those tendencies can dominate a personality in life. A person can get so lethargic and so negative they don't care for anybody else that they lose their conscience, become dark, and they seem like they're normal people because they don't show darkness or light. They're just neutral until they turn on you, and they're very violent, very aggressive. So the aggressiveness in our life, the aggression, the anger, the hostility, it's all born from CCP. It keeps building as we get older. It takes over our emotional body and can take over the mental body if you let it. And that's when we lose our persona. You see what I'm saying? The universe gave us this opportunity to recognize our true nature while we're in this form because of the various variations and differences. It was believed that our host rhythm would allow us, our good nature, would allow us to see through the dark nature, which it does. But without being taught what to do about it, what to think about it, how to feel about it, how our mind works, how our senses work, then it's up to you as an infant to make huge decisions. Not a good time for a child to have to make serious decisions, is it? If you come from a dysfunctional family like I do, I know what you've suffered. I know what you continue to suffer. And I know the price you paid for years. Because if your parents were critical, complaintive, and punishing, you could be 60 years old and still reviewing your history and blaming your parents for it. But I'd like you to go a step further. Where did their parents get it from? Where'd your grandparents or your parents get theirs from? Their grandparents. Your grandparents, were they critical, complaintive, and punishing? Not always. They tended to show a nicer side, but if you listen carefully, the tendency to humiliate, embarrass, laugh at people a certain way, it's there. It's just diminished in older people, not as negative. But it's there. They suffer it. A good soul will be crying at night, wondering how they can rid themselves of this terrible history and wondering if it affects their soul, if they're going to make it or not. Nothing's going to stop you from making it. All you have to do is integrate your soul with your personality. And to do that, all you have to do is jump on the positive ship, let the negative ship go. Just do. You don't need it. You can do away with it. It's a bad habit. You got to get it out of your heart. You got to get it out of your talk and out of your mind. For example, 3 circles of self I've shown you, what we spoke about. If you talk to yourself all day, do you talk to yourself in negative tones, punishing tones, critical tones? Yeah. If you're accusing yourself all the time, then you're undermining yourself all the time. Not only are you putting aside who you really are from the very onset, there's no reconciliation for the condition. It's a terrible thing to be suffering dysfunction. Parents who were loveless or loveless at times, who didn't realize they were passing on this negative condition to you. But it was expected that every parental group over time, every community would pass it on like a disease to every other community. so that everyone would eventually have an opinion, and not everyone would be positive. The majority would suffer CCP. And that was what they did with the intention of preventing you from excelling and getting out of the darkness, out of this temporal world of pain and punishment, of lovelessness, and out of this world of tests and trials and tribulations. If you're going through tribulation, which most people are, society's starting to on large, then the tribulation is the result of CCP. And you will go through further tribulation until you rid yourself of it. You understand that? For those that are more advanced, I ask you, did you not have to get over your CCP in order to be where you are? And knowing that you have, what's your best advice to people who are just starting out? Let your conscience be your guide. Trust you are a soul. Trust that love wins. Good advice. But what else can you do? How can you identify the conditioning that they have to overcome other than to say it's part of our duality? You just have to accept yourself and love yourself and let go of the tendencies. Easier said than done. That's why I bring it up as a matter of accountability. The universe doesn't want you to suffer this either, but it knows when you are critical, you will suffer. Go ahead and be critical, even for just a half an hour. See what the rest of your day ends up being like. It drops your tempo, your truth, your trust, your capacity for love, diminishes you. It really diminishes you and puts you into a despondent condition afterwards. You go off and criticize and complain and blame and yell and scream, and you go to your room, you cry, you sit down, and feel off. Yeah, because you shouldn't have done that. But they deserved it. So you think of something else what you're going to do tomorrow and you go on with your life. Never really realizing, oh my God, you could stop this right now. This whole thing could come to an end if you just realized Uncle Tom, Aunt Miriam, who hasn't got CCP. This is going to require you to have patience and tolerance for people who do suffer it. But it's a great opportunity to realize that it's a fact. I want you to go out and look for it. I want you to turn on your TV and listen for it. I want you to see if it's around you in your environment, anywhere else. Does anyone else suffer this syndrome? Or is it just the guy that told us on YouTube? Ask yourself, who hasn't got it? Well, my doctor is pretty nice. He seems objective. He's never critical. Well, he may be just that. He may just be objective, and he hasn't got time for complaints and criticisms. But he may suffer on a small scale if he hasn't chosen to rid himself of it completely. What I'm saying is there are people who can concentrate into being what they need to be for their job, and that when they go home at night, then it all comes back. Others don't worry about whether they have it during the day or not, and they have it all the time. Some are pretending that they're not like this. They're trying very hard, but in their own self-talk, they're yelling at themselves. Why are you doing this? We don't do this. Quit pretending. Why are you being nice when you're not? Well, because I want the job. I want to keep making money, and I want to keep people thinking I'm a nice person. Keep pretending, and it's going to be more harmful. It'll affect your health. I've noticed that people who have this suffer from fear more than most people. And their mental health gets worse and worse and worse over time. I can actually say that fault finding, which is CCP, is a mental health condition. People who suffer CCP, who are fault finders, they suffer physically, mentally, and emotionally, in every way. Do something negative and see if you don't suffer until you change. You do. That is the law of accountability. It's not that the universe doesn't want you to. The universe is saying, you got the right to choose here. You can be self-serving and selfish, aggressive, arrogant, ignorant. There's plenty in the universe that are like that in this dimension. Or you can choose the soul. Be loving, inspirational, objective, caring, authentic, and you can make it. Complete your process and get out of here. You got what you came for. The universe doesn't care what you choose, but it wants you to make a choice. So it's going to continue to give you more of what you want until it fills you up and you are full of light, or it empties you because you chose to. And there's some, in spite of everything, no matter what they hear, they're staying negative because they're self-serving and they're selfish, and that's it. Nothing that can be done for those personalities. You have to leave them to themselves. I'm talking about, the diehard black guys, the dark guys, some of the bikers, some of the murderers, killers, these kinds of people, ISIS, the ones that are more than willing to go out of their way to do harm, commit harm, endanger life, seize life, poison life, destroy life. They destroy their conscience at every choice they make to the point where there's no conscience left to hear. Those that are closer to the conscience and feel the pangs of conscience, that's a signal your soul is working with you. Don't stop. It's also proof that you have a soul. When you do something that bothers you and you feel bad about it, you go meditate on it, you work on it, and you admit fault and say, oh, it's my fault. I was envious and I tried to interfere and I'm trying to just hang on to the girlfriend and I didn't want him to take her away from me. That's why I acted silly in front of them both. When you can be honest with yourself, you'll restore your conscience. Did you know your conscience is your spirit's intelligence at work through your soul, through your higher self, in your body, giving you a sense of right and wrong? Is not a learned thing. It's there from birth. The sense of return, the right of return, our objective as a soul. We don't remember it all, but we do have this as a guide. Your conscience is your template for recognizing differences, just like our heart, which gives us a greater sense of certainty in our conclusions. So when your conclusions no longer bear the mark of CCP at heart, then the conditioning will start to unravel, dissolve, and go away. So long as you're persuasive enough with yourself to be more optimistic, more positive, more authentic, more generous, more real. The more you study the positive side of you and act on it, the better off you'll be. The more you ignore CCP, the more it'll continue to stick around because you have to defeat it. It's one of those things you cannot just ignore forever. If you don't get rid of CCP in your life, then you'll find yourself eventually subject to it and suffering from it. And what does it cost? It'll cost you everything. Everything. It'll cost you your happiness in a relationship. It'll cost you your relationship with your children. It'll cost you your friends. You'll end up alone in misery, only with company that will like you. So your critical, complainant, punishing friends all get together for a beer and a smoke and a toke, and they hang around and talk on the porch until they fall asleep and they come back the next day. But that's your friends, the ones that are like you. I've often said, when you go to heaven, you'll find yourself in a place that's very much like your nature. In other words, bikers go to Bikerville, con men go to Conville. The ones that are spiritual go to Spiritville. If your nature is to be critical, you're going to be found yourself around a bunch of people who are critical, who are trying to evolve. If you're punishing, you're going to find yourself in a world full of punishment. Get rid of it. You don't need it. It's a lesson you do not need anymore. It only helps to inform you what is right. Do the right thing for your children and for you. Get rid of CCP. I plan on pointing it out more and more and more in the future, but I want to leave it with you for you to consider, to study. How long do you think it'll take you to get rid of one word at a time? Stop accusing people. Stop criticizing. Stop complaining, blaming, and stop punishing. 4 weeks, one word each week, and you can be done with it. I guarantee your health will change, your vitality will change, your attitudes of negativity will go away, your despondent moods will be driven out, and all you'll have left is neutral to positive to go ahead. And you might have to kick in love to keep yourself going a little bit. That's all it takes. I focus on purity, that's my word each day, but I started with integrity. And I'll give you the words that you'll need to go through to manifest each aspect of your true nature. But that's what we're here for, to materialize it. If you are honest, bring it out. Do as much as you can to be honest, because that is going to give you a gift. Once you become completely honest, you know what happens? You never have to worry again about somebody coming to the door, somebody calling on the phone, a letter in the mail, someone talking about you from behind your back. It doesn't matter what anybody says or does when they come to your door, because you cannot be blamed, you cannot be accused, you cannot be charged with being that any longer. It's true. Once you get rid of these 3, 4 words, you will be a better person, a happier person, a liberated person, and your ego, you only have to kill off the accuser before it's all done. I mean, when I say kill it, I mean slay it. You'll have to defeat it with wisdom and with love. You'll have to face it face to face and realize that's my dark side. And rather than trying to destroy it, I can face it, admit the truth to myself, talk to my brain, talk to my body, talk to my soul, and say, I want to remedy this. And here's the first word I'm going to put on: humility, balance, harmony. I'm going to start with those words, and then I'm going to go into the greater phraseologies and affirmations that'll get you there. But that's the main hypothesis of what we're talking about. Overcoming these tendencies is the main work. I wrote something down. I'm going to try to recall it at this point. The conversion of humanity. Okay. I'll suggest, I told you this before, there are 72 words you can employ, actualize, to become enlightened. At the expense of getting rid of these 4 negative words, you'll rid yourself of 90% of the temptation, negativity, and the habit, the conditioning itself. You find your mental health returning, your physical health returning, your spiritual health being revitalized. The words I will give to you over time will go one word a week. Accountability is like one of the words that I've been using. I'll go into more and more detail, along with the idea of what thought forms are, what thought form processes are, how memory actually works. We'll talk about how to separate a memory from its visual, from its sensual aspects. In other words, you might remember a time when you were on the beach when you were young, there was a barbecue, and you're having a great day. When that memory comes up, you'll have the visual, you'll have the confirmation of what you were thinking and feeling at that age, who was talking to you then, what kinds of things were taught to you. You can see your entire history in one single memory if you're willing to freeze it, take a look at it. We'll cover that. I'll cover everything possible that relates to the soul, so that you as an individual have to step up, hold yourself accountable, begin your process, initiate your soul, anchor your soul, magnetize the words till they become part of your natural consciousness, which they are. It's like reawakening to the template of your soul, to the attributes you were given. Each one will manifest in its time. I can tell you that sentiently over time, without realizing it, I've gotten several extensive sensory projection opportunities, meaning I can sit and look and listen to a person that's talking to me. And once they open up, I can start to see their history. I can also see the solution to the problems they're having today. I can see the conditions that were happening in the past that led them to today. So I can see whether they're at peace or not, and to what degree it will take for them to become enlightened. That all came about just by wanting to know how to get rid of CCP and becoming my true soul. It just kept expanding. If I wanted to experience someone else's experience, it was easy. All I had to do was be free from judgment. Think about it. If you want to know someone really well, promise yourself not to judge what they say, but to understand it. Have a confessor's ear. Listen carefully. And when you sense they've got a little CCP, don't tell them. Tell yourself. It's okay. You're supposed to have that. This is something you can help them with in the future. You get what I'm saying? You have the ability to be perfectly capable of understanding anybody's experience that they mention. And you can do so as long as you don't judge. But if you judge the way they look, the way they're dressed, the way they sound, the way they express themselves, or just their attitude, then you're not going to get anywhere with that. You couldn't offer being a therapist because you're judgmental. And you're not allowed to know more about that individual soul until you get past the judgments. That's what I was taught. And so I practice it. Listening without judgment, speaking without judgment, walking without judgment, living without judgment. And as I did this, my sensory capacity expanded, 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 so I was no longer limited anymore. Other attributes pop up. You'll find many of you will have other gifts of wisdom and inspiration and other things. Telekinesis. Others will have more. But rhythmically, you'll be better off, you'll be happier, and you'll start to have confirmable rapport with your soul. You'll know when you talk to yourself, if you let your conscience listen, let your soul listen to what you're saying, you're going to arrive at better conclusions. Try it tonight. Talk to yourself about what you want from your life. Then, when you're all done, ask your conscience, could you please come in and give me a review of what I've decided were possible projections for my life? This is what I think, this is what I said, this is how I feel. Please tell me if I'm right or wrong. Your conscience will guide you and show you the little things that are not correct or should be corrected or could be better understood. It'll help you rephrase your whole statement. You have an active helper, thought adjusting helper in your life. Call it your spirit, but an attribute of your spirit is this so-called innate and quiet small voice that we call the still small voice of conscience. And it works. So for internal guidance, seek out your divinity, the truth. You can talk to God, talk to the Trinity, talk to Jesus, talk to whoever you believe in that offers you the absolute, nothing but the absolute and holy truth. Talk to your conscience, talk to your soul. All of your options are there. Just go beyond your own conclusion and stop and go, wait, let me check that conclusion with my soul. You will be so much happier that you did it because it will continue to add to your life. Write it down in a journal. How you started, how you finished, what you got that night, what you got the next day, how you got rid of the word complaints, criticism, punishment, accusation, envy, jealousy, deceit, deception, manipulation. These are all tendencies to protect and defend our pride, false identity, which comes up as critical complaintive expressions, accusation expressions. When you hear that, that's the negative self-talking. That's your pride hidden behind the mess of grief, bewilderment, who never got taught. Have empathy for yourself. I gotta tell you one more time, the universe does not judge, does not accuse, does not complain, does not criticize, condemn, or hold you accountable for being ignorant. It simply wants you to make a choice to live as a soul or live like this, the negative. Choose. You choose to live as a soul, upwards you go, and you get the opportunity. You choose to live as a selfishly, well, you get to do that until you run yourself dry of energy. It's up to you. as an individual. It's up to your children to make that choice one day as they get older, as they become adults. Help get them there. Help them realize that none of this negativity is going to benefit anyone. There's no benefit to punishment. Nobody gains. Think of the people that are on death row. What is the point? Vengeance, probably, but it's an illusion. Thinking you can get even with someone for what they've done to someone else. The universe takes care of this naturally. It's called the law of accountability. Some will call it karma. I don't. I see it as pure education. When you make a mistake, it'll give you an experience that'll help you understand how you made that mistake. And if you didn't listen, that'll keep coming, and they'll keep coming back, and they'll come in harsher experiences until you finally get enough humility to reckon that you might be at fault. And this continues, and will continue throughout the rest of your life if you do not cease and desist from being this way. So you have the choice. You can continue to be critical, complainant, punishing, accusational, but nothing is going to benefit. There are no benefits. You might get a few laughs from friends or people that are also suffering CCP, but that's the most you're going to get. And that laugh is not support. The people who would walk away from you are trying to tell you something. A, you lack conscience, principle, ethics, morals, and the way you talk about people is really, really not likable. It's not fun. Who wants to know someone who lacks conscience? Really? So if you are that person, do yourself a favor. Set a new agenda for yourself. Decide to recover from this illness that we all suffer. It's just a syndrome, a personality syndrome. But you can get rid of it. There's something else I wanted to bring up here. What was it? Oh, yeah. We talked about integrity last time. I know I want to cover motive and intent. But if you have the intention to maintain your integrity every day, you should find yourself recognizing this attribute right away. Your integrity will save you from being critical, complaining, punishing, accusational, negative, compromising, controlling. It will. It'll remind you, hey, you don't have to be this way. And if you choose to go the other way, you'll find that a lot more fulfilling and you'll breach that habit. I know when a child learns to feel disappointed and when parents say, don't touch, don't touch, the child gets disappointed. They keep doing it, the child gets frustrated. Keep doing it, they start getting angry. If you're an angry person today, you're going to have to stop yourself from being angry 10 times before you can just start being frustrated. When you catch yourself being frustrated, stop it 10 times and you get back down to just being disappointed. When you stop being disappointed 10 more times, you'll get back down to basic, raw understanding of each other. We work out of a problem that we develop in our ego as much as we build into it. It takes 10 to the power, or 1 to the power of 10 times being critical before you're functionally dysfunctional. 10 to the power of criticism and complaint and punishment before you have fixated your life. So if you're an angry person who's very critical, you can stop doing that, and after 10 times you'll just be a frustrated person. And then after that, 10 more times you'll just be a disappointed person. And then after that, you'll be free. So there is an expectation of cognitive dissonance. Your neurons will change over time. The habit, the condition, and the belief in heart changes and alters only when you have proven something new to your mind. Your mind can't see something you haven't experienced. But if you haven't experienced, show it to your mind. You'll never forget it. And you can work with it. You know yourself. I grew up without TV. Some of you have been used to TV all your life. But I grew up without it. And I saw the influences that it brought into society, into my own home, my neighborhood, into our nation. And I realized what it was doing. And then when digital economy arrived, I realized what that was doing. How on one side it was adding to our telepathic capacity to be collectively conscious, and on the other side it was reducing us down to non-identity and making us even more like trolls, critical of each other, complaintive and punishing. So be careful. All the information you take in has value. To remember it in critical, complainant, punishing terms, memories, conclusions, is not fun. When I look back at my past, I only want to see all the positives, all the things that were the benefits of my life. I can see what I went through. I don't need to review it anymore. But I see the changes I went through as a result of getting rid of it. And that's everything to me. And it can be everything to you too. Get rid of your CCP, and everyone will start subscribing, liking, approving of you. You'll find relationships so much easier. You know, there isn't a woman out there who likes a guy who lacks conscience. There's a few young ones who like the excitement of being on the edge, but they don't like a person who lacks conscience, morals, ethics, principles, who's critical, complaintive, and punishing to everybody. It might be fun for a small time, but not long. And no woman in her right mind wants to raise a family with a guy who's like that. So now you know. Stay away from getting too involved with people who suffer that syndrome. Too costly. You can't change them. It's a choice they have to make willfully for themselves only. Until next time, please study this. Please consider it. Review it. Pass it on to your friends. Show it to everyone. There'll be lots more to come. I'll see you next time. Gracious peace. I am out. Bye for now.